Where there is love, they incite hate. Where there is peace, they wage war. Where there is good, they inhabit evil. Where there is truth, they tell lies. Where there is beauty, they embrace ugliness. Where there is hope, they wallow in despair. Where there is success, they aspire to failure. Where there is wealth, they live in poverty. Where there is light, they turn to darkness. Where there is freedom, they bind to slavery. Where there is life, they cling to death.
I just want to start by reading the email that led to Kaleem's email. There's been some people leaving things in the communal area, which they're not supposed to do. And once again, the directors have never done anything about it. So I sent this email to everybody and said, "Hello, once again, I find myself having to do the work because the directors and Prime don't know how to do their job. Block number 3 has had items stored in the communal area for the past few years. Every time I visit Mr. Sims, I see 2 prams and 1 bike in the ground floor. The bike is usually parked right in front of the doors leading to the patio, and the prams are parked outside flat 18 indirectly in front of the door to the staircase. I keep meaning to take photos, but I forgot. If I have to take photos of all the things that are wrong in this building, it would be never ending. Right? The policy in buildings of this type is to keep residents safe by ensuring communal corridors, walkways, halls, stairs, and landings are kept clear of sources of ignition, potential fuel sources, and obstructions. Since the Grenfell Tower tragedy, fire safety has become the biggest concern in all blocks of flats, and the residents in this building should be made aware of the dangers their actions pose to themselves and their neighbours. There needs to be a clear corridor policy stating that no items should be left lying around in any part of a residential building, including its corridors, landings and balconies, entrance and exits, and the communal area. Items that pose fire risk include bags of rubbish, which I have seen before, leaflets thrown all over the floor, these should be cleared by the cleaners weekly, bicycles, pushchairs, scooters, electronic bikes, and prams. This policy also extends to motorized vehicles, including but not limited to motorbikes, scooters, and mobility scooters. It excludes motorized wheelchairs, which may access an individual property through shared areas and be stored in an individual's home. But it must not be left in a shared area covered by this policy. The bicycle and prams clearly violates this policy because they are obstructing the entries and exits in the building. Flats 18, 19, 20 and 22 need to inform their tenants that they need to move these items. The bikes should be stored in the underground car park in the designated parking space, and the prams need to be stored inside the property. We could make an exception for the top floor flat where there is space outside the flat to keep the pram, as long as it does not obstruct the neighbouring flat. Lower floor flats will have to keep their prams inside the flat. All leaseholders in other blocks should inform their tenants of this policy and ensure that they comply with it. Thank you for your attention and cooperation. I should mention that e-bikes are not allowed in this building currently, as there is nowhere to charge and store them safely. The lithium-ion batteries used on electric bikes, e-bikes and electric scooters, e-scooters, are the capital's fastest growing fire risk. In 2023 in London, there was an e-bike or e-scooter fire once every 2 days on average. So that was my email to people to enforce a clear corridor policy because it was not safe. And in response to that email, the director sent this to everybody. I think that is like a perfectly reasonable email Lewisham Council has been forced this thing, and they have this corridor policy. So I think it's a good idea that we should comply with what Lewisham Council's. So the directors responded with this email immediately. He says, "Dear all, we have a major problem with service charge arrears, which we have previously discussed at every meeting and at the last AGM meeting. And I think that as stakeholders, you all need to be aware of the impact this is having on the building and to your money. Flat XXX owes £11,882 and 49 pence plus any solicitor fees. Flat ZZZ owes 5,280 plus 13 pence plus solicitor fees, and another individual has not paid anything towards this year's service charge." That's me. He's referring to me. "Everyone has paid either in full or set up a monthly standing order, which has enabled us to have cash flow available to pay for contractors and communal charges. To the non-payers, I have this question. Please tell us how you can justify non-payments and tell us what needs to happen for you to make the payments. To everyone else, I will be interested to hear how you feel about this, please. Unless the arrears are paid, we will definitely run out of money well before the end of the year, and we won't be able to pay for mandatory services. Money to pay for building insurance, legal and mandatory periodical checks, utilities, cleaners, handyman, gardener, etc., etc. It's paid by all of us. There is no income from anywhere else. So unless everyone pays, then it's all of us that suffer because individuals fail to meet their contractual obligation as listed in the lease. No agent or director can magic money unless funds are available and everyone pays their fair share. We can change management company. You can have new directors if this is what the majority wants, but unless funds are available, new management company and directors will be faced with exactly the same issues. From the non-payers, we all need to understand why." And then James backs up the Mamas with this agreement. "Thanks, Mamas. Couldn't agree more. Service charge is vital for us to maintain the building and help with projects we need around the grounds. We don't let one leaseholder go around telling you don't have to. Is it fair that the majority of leaseholders here need to cover those in arrears? Everyone has their own individual problems. We need those that owe money to start paying up their fair share. It's ridiculous and selfish." And I responded with saying, "I couldn't agree less with you, James. You need to sack Prime Property Management and take them to court. They have done absolutely nothing in this building. I have had to correct their mistakes too many times now, and I'm sick of it. Prime is putting the lives of the resident in this building at risk because of theirs and your incompetence. I also think the directors need to go. There is important work that needs doing, and you are not doing it. This building is not suffering because of lack of money. It's suffering because of bad management and bad directors. As for being fair, you should think about what is fair for Mr. Sims, who is stuck with an abandoned car in his parking space for 7 years. Prime and the directors need to pay to remove that car. Is it fair that Mr. Sims is forced to pay its abuser when Prime has caused him so much grief? Clearly, money was not the problem because you have been spending on painting and decorating, decimating the garden of every living plant and killing wildlife and putting children's health at risk. Paying Prime PM to continue their abuse of pensioner and leaseholders in this building. None of the repair work that this building needs has been done. It's money wasted doing things you were not supposed to do. The directors should pay for the garden since it was their stupid decision and no one else. I paid £3,000 and you wasted that money because you don't know what you are doing. I could have fixed the garden myself. Take responsibility for your own attitudes and lack of education and stop blaming others. The fact that even now you still don't understand that Prime does not know how to manage a block of flats is shocking. Are you sending this email because the one I sent about the prams in the hallway, because that is your flat? You are violating fire safety law and this is actually a criminal offence." And then Kaleem responds with, "Yen, why do you do this? Surely by now you should have realized that this repeat cycle of yours is not effective communication. Pretty clear, everyone, there's more going on here than a concerned homeowner. We are not your therapists. I suggest you find a good one and try to help yourself. There's a director. You were a director and you couldn't work with anyone. You left. Your moaning has made others leave being a director. Even if more people wanted to help you, you single-handedly make it so undesirable for anyone to even consider trying to pitch in. Prime as management agents aren't great, but we are also low on budget because you and others aren't paying your service fees. To all who support a changing agent, that's fine, but let's be real here. There's no guarantee with agents. Most say all the right things and few deliver. It's complex and slow to remove agents once signed up. We have done this cycle before historically and ended it the same. To be realistic with your expectations, everyone. Agents cost more money, and good ones with a strong rep, proven history, cost more. If you want to change, great, but service charges may have to go up for an agent with a proven reputation, and even the strong agents take cuts for projects. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Our demands expectations are high and budget is low. Balance your expectations. And then he continues with, Mammoth and James, I personally fully support taking those who haven't paid their service fees to court and using the service budget to do it, with the proviso that when we win, these people are also obligated to pay back our legal fees. This has gone on for too long. And I respond with, the problem here again and again is you, Kaleem, and the leaseholders. You are risking people's lives in this building because you want to be cheap. You are paying a company that has no clue how to manage a block of flats. The directors are so ignorant they don't even understand when Prime is breaking the law. It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with lack of professionalism and lack of education. Prime is not cheap because the damage they have caused over the years is going to cost all of us even more to repair it, not counting the cost of people's livelihoods, health and well-being. They have violated the lease contract in the management of this building. Now you are saying that we should keep this company on because they are cheap and forget about their lack of professionalism and mismanagement. You are sacrificing people's lives to save money. You sound like a rogue landlord. Take it to court. If you are so arrogant, you think the court will agree with you. And Kaleem replies with, to be clear, I'm actually pro-changing Prime, but I'm also saying that finding a good one that's within our budget is potluck. The only way to minimize this risk is to get one with a proven track record, which may cost more, and with it may impact our service charges. If you can find a good agent, Yen, that means we won't. To increase service charges, I'm pretty sure everyone will support it. Just make sure it's one that is flawless, as your mouth tends to write checks it can't cash. I'm pretty sure many people will enjoy letting you know if the agent you recommend turns out to be the same. And it continues with, I look forward to the 25 views it gets, the same as your 1 hour long gossip podcast, 24 of which are probably you repeating watching. So then Mr. Sim then sends an email to say that he does not sends an email in response to all these emails. He says, hello, I would like to give my point of view over the recent email exchanges. I do not want to take the 3 leaseholders to court and make them pay for the service charge. I do not agree with punishing those people who do not want to pay Prime because I do not want to pay Prime and the directors to manage this building. It was a mistake of Mammoth to assume that people paying the service charge meant that they agreed with the directors and Prime. They do not. The reason I paid the service charge was because I felt intimidated by the consequences Prime and the directors would inflict on me. I am a pensioner who lives alone in this building, and over the years I have not had any support from anybody, least of all the directors and Prime. I do not have access to computers or internet to know where to look for help. I was not informed of the running of this building and others' opinions, so I was not aware that there were others who felt the same way about Prime. My situation with Prime has left me frustrated and angry, so going forward, I do not intend to pay any more service charge to Prime. I will be joining the other 3 leaseholders in protest. I also do not want to pay to remove the trees in the garden at this stage. Lewisham Council has already said that they will retain the trees, so we should respect their decision. The directors and Prime withholding the application from Yen is not acceptable. They should hand over the information so she can proceed with a new application. Finally, I would like to comment on Kalim's emails to Yen. I find his attitude disrespectful and distasteful. Regarding his comments about Yen seeking therapy, I find it totally unacceptable and intimidating. The reason we have so many problems in this building is because people don't know how to behave with decency and civility. And then Kalim replies, believe we need 50% to vote on whether or not we can use funds to take you to court, Yen. I personally vote yes. Irony is all this is distracting from the actual issues of the building. Whether it be prime or general maintenance, James Mammers will leave to you to determine best way forward. With regards to Mr. Sims, perhaps we should have a more appropriate intermediary. Not sure how Yen self-assigned herself. James Mammers, perhaps ask Mr. Sims' daughter if you can have 5-minute chat with her and Mr. Sims together. Further explain the situation, how some people owe well over 10,000 and others 78,000, and the impact of lack of service charges. I too have an elderly father. I know how things can sometimes be misinterpreted, misunderstood, misrepresented. Finally, Yen, I see no mention of your attitude from Mr. Sims. Interesting. It's very useful. We have your emails podcast to refer back to when the time is right. And that was the email. So let's go in and discuss about the email exchanges. Where do you want to start with some of the emails?
Well, it seems that what you have said hasn't really been dealt with, because you've given a long list of things that you were worried about, and the reply, well, it's quite an aggressive reply. It seems that
reply from Kalim.
Yeah, it's quite aggressive, and it seems that it's like sort of you're not really addressing each other's issues each time. So all the things that you already have said that you were worried about, they haven't really responded to that.
No, I think that let's talk about the management, the prime and the directors, management demanding money for service charges, and the fact is that these directors and prime property cannot do the job. And over the years, they've caused more damage to this building than they have actually managed, that we are going to have to pay for. And prime property management needs to be sacked because they simply don't know how to manage the Bakwa flats. And the directors themselves don't know. And really, the directors have themselves caused more damage through their ignorance and incompetence. Let's go over Kalim's email and shows how stupid Kalim really is. He's saying that we need to hire a managing agent. Actually, you don't. If you don't have the money to hire a managing agent, you can manage the building yourself. So if they don't have the money, why don't they manage the building themselves? Because they're too stupid. They don't know how to do the job. Just ask yourself, you've seen the photographs of the building.
Yeah, I have, yes.
Suppose they had managed the building themselves for all these years. Do you think this building could look any worse?
Well, I think the problem is that you've both got really different ideas of what you want to see done, and they're not listening to what you suggest.
No, but the question is, if looking at the photographs,
no,
the problem.
The photographs are not. Don't make it look exactly. A pleasant place to
so
live.
They're paying a managing agent.
But you've already got other people who have said that they're unhappy with the state of the place, haven't you? I mean,
looking at the photographs, and I said, had they managed this building themselves, could it look any worse? Do you need to pay a managing agent to leave sewage in the garden? Do you need to do that? You can do that yourself for free, right? You can neglect this whole building for free without managing agents. And had they done that, they would have been a lot richer, right? They would still have the same building, but they would have been a lot richer. Right. And then he goes on to say that we don't have the money to pay a managing agent, so we need one that's cheap. Right. This is how these reflects very poorly on the leaseholders. He's saying that they're too poor to pay for a decent managing agent, too stupid to manage them themselves. He's actually shot himself in the foot by saying that. But even though they don't have the money to hire a decent managing agent, he's telling everybody to put their money together and to use that money to take the leaseholders to court. That shows how the hatred that he has for me in particular, like the pure hatred that rather than spend the money hiring a decent agent, he wants everybody to put money together and go to court where they could lose even more money. But that shows how stupid these leaseholders are. They don't have the intelligence to do the job. All they can do is to moan and bitch about people who are doing the job. In the Kaleem's point about Mr. Sims saying that I have some influence over him. Well, firstly, I'm the only person who's ever supported him, for one thing. And in terms of writing that email, he looked over the emails and he agreed with every point that was written in the email. And in the past, actually, I've told Mr. Sims he should go and support the directors if maybe they're having, but he refuses. His suggestion that Mr. Sim can't think for himself is actually really insulting and ageist.
Yeah, also, I think that you can really hear in the podcast you did with Mr. Sim that he's very intelligent and thoughtful man. So, yeah, I agree.
Clean. Yeah. His disgusting attitudes comparing Mr. Sims to his father. Well, if you look at the father, you look at the son. It's like, look at the son, excuse me. But no, Mr. Sim is a very independent person. He's very alert mentally. He lives by himself. He cooks for himself. He goes shopping by himself. He reads the paper every single day. He watches TV. There's nothing wrong with him at all. He was not aware of the things that's going on in this building before, but he's aware now. He totally disagrees with these directors and their behaviour. He refuses to support them in any way, even to help himself. He just refuses. Like with a car that's stuck in his garage, he said, I don't care, I'm not doing it, I'm not going to do anything about that. I'm not paying them. I'm not going to support the directors at all. And I find that, he has integrity compared to some of the other people in the building who jumps from one person to another doesn't care what the standards or the principles or the morality of the person. Let's start with George. Okay, George was one I appointed as the secretary of the freehold company, and his purpose was to help me file the accounts with the company's house, because he was familiar with doing that. So yeah, he came on board, and then he would go into the meetings with me, Brett, and Nicole, and Jenny at the time, and then Brett started coming up with his unworkable ideas that are illegal in many ways, and I said, no, Brett, you can't do that. And then in the meetings, I would have to argue with him because he refused to listen. And this is the problem, is that they refuse to listen. It's the arrogance of people like Brett, Mamas, and Jane, and Shalene, and Nicole. It's their arrogance. So Brett was trying to force through his ideas, and I would have to resist him. And George, at the time, he would whisper to me, yeah, and I support you. You were the one who bought the freehold. But then when Brett had these meetings, he would go to those meetings as well. So George was like two-faced. He completely lacks any morals or ethics or principles. He doesn't care. He just wanted to be on the winning side. And he basically would be on both sides. He'd say one thing to me, and then he'd go to those meetings with Brett, and then he would, agree with Brett. When Brett refused to resign as director of the freehold company, of the RTM freehold company, I said, I'm not going to be working with you. But you don't want to be working with him because, like I said to you, he's a serial liar, a fantasist, and a common thief. He's a criminal who hasn't been caught yet. He's just so untrustworthy, and definitely not somebody that you'd ever want to manage your investment or your money. So I said, I don't want to be associated with him because anything that goes wrong, he's going to implicate me in it. And I don't want to be any part of that. So I want to disassociate myself. I will never work with somebody like that. Okay. So I went off, and then George, he doesn't care about the kind of person that Brett is. He went off with Nicole and George. And by this time, nobody really in the building wanted to be directors alongside Nicole and Brett. But George was the only one who was willing to step up. So because he was the only one who was friendly with these. So he was asked to be director, but with Nicole, and he stepped up. The three of them worked together, and that was the time when they totally blocked any meetings in the building. And it's like, they never communicated with us. We would communicate with Prime and they would be in the emails, but they never replied. Like, they just ignored us. And Prime was like, sometimes replied, sometimes did not reply. And Prime were doing what the director's telling them to do. The director said, Nicole says, I don't want to have meetings. And Prime would say, okay, there's no meetings, right? And that's one for like 2.5 years, 3 years. So George was that one. And then suddenly, when I finally got the others involved, and they were, and there was like a commotion going on in the building, and people were emailing Prime and saying, I want a meeting, I want a meeting. So because there were more people getting involved, Prime could not refuse, right? So they organized the meeting, and we also had meetings amongst ourselves as well. And suddenly George came into the meetings. Like, he suddenly saw that these two, they were about to be discarded, and he suddenly switched sides. So he came over and he came into the meeting, he started saying, well, I tried to do this and I did that, and Prime refused to do this. No, he didn't care. Like, he didn't do a single thing. If Nicole didn't want to have the meetings, he could argue with her and force through and tell Prime, I want to have the meetings. But he did nothing. But when it became obvious that those two were losing grounds, like, he switched over and he just started joining with the new thing. And now he's, there's a new Nicole has been removed because she's just like incommunicado. She doesn't talk to. So she was removed and George is still on there. So George is now working like with this new group of people. You see how these people operate in this building. And the reason he does that, and I know that it's because that he's trying to protect his interests. Like, he doesn't, he always wants to be in with whoever is the leader, right?
Yes.
Because it's about his own interests, personal interests. It's not about anybody else's.
Just people pleasing for the sake of it, sort of thing.
Yeah. And also, like I said, it's about protecting his own interests in this building. And because he worked with those idiots, Brett and Nicole, for years, who didn't have a clue what they were doing, he doesn't have a clue what he's doing. He was the one who was responsible for the form that he sent out to everybody to sign, and saying that, you should sign it. It was totally illegal form. I mean, it wasn't legally valid in any way, that form that they sent out and asking all the leaseholders sign about the freehold.
So can you explain a bit exactly why it was illegal?
Well, first of all, the whole format of the form is that they didn't understand what was written on the form, for one thing. I think that they may have actually gone to a solicitor, and and the solicitor may have drafted the form to them, but I've never had confirmation from those two whether or not they actually got a professional involved. I mean, if you see the form, for one thing, is like whoever drafted that form, their name wasn't on it, right? Like, why would you sign a form if the person who drafted the form didn't want to be associated with the form?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Even basic things like the date wasn't on it. It quoted some sort of legislation,
right?
And to regards, and it's about the two people who wants to join the freehold company. It's to create new shares for the company, so that the two new people who have bought into the freehold could join the company. But it was just totally incorrect, and we won't go into the legal detail of that in here. Essentially, that was.
But essentially, it was illegal, so it was all for nothing,
it wasn't legally valid in any way.
Exactly. So there was no point in doing it if it's not legally valid.
No, it wasn't, and nobody even spotted it. And there are people like Jenny, who's a solicitor in this build, in solicitor. She didn't even spot that. Nobody spotted it. And they had them. They had their illegal. That meeting was illegal that they had.
Because you weren't invited. You have to be invited. It's a legal requirement.
Yeah. So so he was the one who's responsible, and that doesn't surprise me, because how can you even consider yourself competent when you're working? He spent years working alongside people who was totally incompetent.
Yeah.
Of course, he's not. He's going to walk away not knowing what to do about anything, and he doesn't know. Apart from doing the basic that he does, he doesn't know how to do anything in terms of managing the freehold company. He just does it, and he seems to think that, okay, well, I'm not the director, so whatever happens, it's not I'm not responsible, so I'm okay. Well, actually, no, you're actually responsible because you are part of it. Like, you cannot absolve yourself from
of course.
any criminality by saying that I'm not the director, I didn't make the decision. You're the one who actually responsible for that document. Like, and that's like an example of the kind of people in this building. And there's another person who is Jackie. Now, she was like my friend before, right? And I remember one time I asked her, Jackie, why don't you say something about Brett? Like, why don't you speak up about what he did?
Yeah.
Like, and she said to me, no, I don't want to, because if I want anything done in my building, they won't do it for me. Right, and that is the key here.
Yes,
that is the key for these people.
Point, yes.
Yeah,
so
that is how these people think. Some of them, they're just so ignorant, they don't understand what's going on. But people like Jackie and George, they're just a complete lack of moral. Like, they don't care what's wrong, right or wrong. They just follow the majority. And I think that's the kind of mentality of the people in this building, is that either they don't understand what's right and wrong, or they do, but they don't care because they're looking out for their own interests. And the same with Oliver. Oliver was the one whom I trained up, actually, because at the time I was the only one who was sending emails out to people. And I was getting fed up with it. And I said, we need other people to show that there's more people in this building who are concerned about the state of affairs. And so I told Oliver, can you send out emails to people and call for a meeting? And he was, he didn't want to, because he said, I don't know how to do an email. I don't know how to set up a meeting. And I had to teach him how to set up a meeting. And then he became more proficient with it. And people noticed that he was the one who was doing the meeting, so they got him. Other people said, "Oh, yeah, Oliver, can you set up this meeting? Can you do that?" And Oliver said, "Oh, okay, yes, Oliver, do it." And then after the destruction of the garden, I said to Oliver, "You need to avoid these people. Like, just stay away from them. If they want to go out and behave the way they do, then let them do it." But Oliver, seeing that, he said, "Oh, no, I'm just going to help them." He was the idiot who sent out that form to everybody. So he's now involved in their little whatever it is that they've got going on. He's involved in it. And that's the kind of, it's like I said, either he is so devoid of principles that he doesn't care. He'll just do whatever he's told, and he sees that this person has got more people agreeing with them or supporting them, so he'll join. So he follows the crowd, essentially. And I said to him, look, they're not doing things right. Okay, you need to stay away from it before they get you involved into something that is going to get you into trouble. And he didn't listen to me. And he's the one who sent out the form. So now he's in the thick of it. And whether or not he cares, I don't know. Whether or not these people care, I really don't know. And Joe is another example of how ignorant people are. When the freehold was offered for sale, he never said anything about buying the freehold. I never heard anything from him. His lease was about 78 years left. That's quite a short lease. And when Rob was organising the meeting to discuss buying the freehold, he never turned up. I never heard from him. He never supported the idea, or he never showed any support to buy the freehold. I feel that's so strange.
Yeah, it's weird.
From this person. So it was only really Rob who was interested in buying the freehold, and then it was left to me to pursue it, which I did. And then it was only when I portioned the cost of the freehold, I found out that he was one of the people whose flats needed, he has been here since the beginning, since from 1997. So he's one of the original owners in the building, the original leaseholder in the building. And yet, throughout all these years, he never, when people were extending their lease, he did nothing. So it's he just seems to be vacant. Such a vacant person. And also, he ended up having to pay £16,000 for his share of the freehold when he should have only paid about £6,000. The reason he had to pay so much more money was because the directors, Brett and Kaleem, didn't have a clue what they were doing. And he never held these people were responsible. Like, he never said anything about these people. Why is it I'm paying so much money?
Yeah.
Who is responsible for that? Because the freehold was offered for 60,000, meaning that I should have only paid about 6,000. And yet I ended up with 16,000. And, he just paid the money and he didn't say anything afterwards.
Wow.
And then when Brett became the director of the freehold, I did speak to him and I said, listen, Brett shouldn't be the director of the freehold. He didn't do anything, but he never spoke out against Brett.
Yeah.
Like, he never said that. And now he's one of the people in the building who thinks that that they should put money together and take Rob and me to court for not paying the service charge. I say that's how ungrateful he is. It's like all the things that Rob did for him.
Yeah,
He wants to take us to court. It's just nasty.
Yeah.
Do you understand how nasty these people are?
Nasty, yeah.
This is so nasty. If it wasn't for me,
and also not just not looking out for their own interests as well, which is strange, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Well, they believe that they're looking out for their interests. In the end, I mean, they all suffer. They're going to suffer in the end.
Yeah.
So he was, his attitude is saying, "Oh yeah, let's take them all to court." Well, okay, let's do it. If they want to take us to court, they do it. I mean, there's certain people who are totally vindictive, like Kaleem, who hates me. He's a failed director. Like, he's atrocious. His ignorance is of the highest degree. He's been director and he can do a thing and he failed completely. And instead of crawling into a hole and just shut up and keep what dignity he has left, every time he comes in, there's a meeting, he comes and he opens his mouth and he starts shooting it off and he tries to run the meeting, trying to talk like he knows what he's talking about when he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he was the one who said we should sack the directors and keep Prime. And because Mamet is stupid, he doesn't understand things. He listened to Kaleem. It took me a whole year to get Mamet to sack Prime. So it's like, he is not helping. He is the problem. He's the cause. James, he doesn't do anything. I mean, all he's interested in was being a director. And as long as he's a director, he will obey Mamet. He follows Mamet around and obey him and do exactly what Mamet tells him to do. And he's like the second dog, He never disagrees. He never makes any decision in the building. So his position as a director is totally pointless.
Yeah.
But James is like George. He'll just latch on to anybody who he thinks will benefit to him. Shalane is a chartered accountant. She's not some people who didn't finish GCSE. She's a chartered accountant.
Yeah.
I was so shocked that she said nothing throughout everything that he did. She said absolutely nothing. She just stayed quiet, supporting him, right? When he tried to extort money from people, she said nothing. And then when he told the gardener to remove everything, to remove all the plants in the garden, destroy everything, she said nothing. And as a chartered accountant, I would have thought she would have the intelligence to understand if you appointed a new gardener for more money, but then you told the gardener to destroy every plant. What exactly are you paying the gardener to do?
Yeah.
That's really bad money management.
Yeah.
And I would expect somebody who is a chartered accountant to understand that and said, I don't think that's a good idea, right?
Yeah.
She did say nothing.
Yeah. And
here's another thing is that I think her behaviour is akin to, you see from Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is that they decide that they're going to be friends. And they're going to be friends with each other. They're going to support each other no matter what. Like, no matter what he does, she will support him 100%. Like, I think, and that comes down to the fact that I don't think she understands what's right and wrong herself, right? She lacks that capability. And that's quite a new, surprising, actually, for me, because coming from a chartered accountant, I mean, that's a very highly qualified person.
Yeah.
And this shows how stupid Shalane is, because there's that tree outside her flat that Prime Property Management left there for years and years and years and did nothing. And that tree was growing close to the building that it was trying to break into her flat in order to grow when it was trying to grow. And because Prime doesn't know what to do, all they did was chop off the branches on the side that's closest to the building. They kept chopping off the branches, and what that caused is that the trees to misshapen, like to become deformed in a way, because it started leaning. Because it's like heavy on the one side, because all the branches were on one side, so it's leaning to the one side, and it's leaning to the fence, right? And that was outside Shalene's house, when they had a meeting with Prime Property Management to decide on the budget for 2025. Shalene was involved, because Mamas doesn't know how to check the service charge himself. He asked Shalene and Jackie to help him. So James, him, Shalene and Jackie were the ones who were deciding on the budget with Prime Property Management. And in that meeting, Mamas agreed to give Prime a pay rise. And guess who supported that decision? Shalene. I mean, how stupid do you have to be to give more money to the company that has done that much damage to your own property? I don't understand how she did not see that as being a stupid thing to do. The right thing to do is just to sack the company, or because of all the distraction.
They never seem to be able to sack the company, do they? Though they
did sack it in the end.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, it took her like a year.
And what made them finally decide?
It was because they failed with the application of the trees, and because I've been screaming at them as well for a few months that their Prime needs to be sacked. But and Mamas, for ages, he refused to sack them. He refused to sack them because he doesn't know how to manage the building, right? He needed a managing agent. And one of the person who said that Prime should be retained and to sack the director was Kaleem. In the meetings, he said, we'll remove the directors, but we'll keep Prime. This shows again how they always turning on each other. Like, they don't support each other. They're always turning on each other, because they're saying that the directors are responsible for the mismanagement of this building, but the Prime Property Management is not. Actually, Prime Property Management is more the guilty party, more than anything. These
it doesn't make any difference if you sack the directors, does it?
Exactly. But they were so stupid. This is what I'm talking about. I know you say that I shouldn't call them stupid, but their decision is so egregious, and they're so nasty to each other. We'll sack the directors, but we'll keep Prime. And even worse, they gave Prime even more money. It's like, why don't you just put a bomb in this building and blow it up? The way you're doing things, it just blows my mind. It was like,
so who is now the managing company, or do they have one? Or not?
One. They need one. Yes. He can't do it by himself.
No. So have they? Who they chosen?
I don't know. Okay. I think I saw the name a few months ago when they think, but I haven't been in contact with them. They haven't contacted me. I haven't contacted them. So I don't know who they are. I can't.
Wouldn't they have a responsibility to make sure that everybody did know, though?
Well, I was blocked, so Mamas just said, "Okay, block her." So block them. So don't contact them. Whatever.
I'm not sure they can legally do that. They're allowed to. I don't think they're allowed to do that, are they?
Well, I told you, this building is anarchy. Okay, this building is total anarchy. They're a law unto themselves. George Orwell was so on point when he wrote his book. You cannot even imagine how accurate he was in describing these kind of people.
Yes, that's true.
If you look at the building as well, it's full of trash. It's degrading building. I sent a photograph to my friend, and she said she can't even believe that this building is only 30 years old.
Really?
She can't see. So, are you? This looks so. It looks like a dilapidated building. It's a shame. It's ugly, and it is actually quite a beautiful building. It has character compared to the other block flats.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that it has.
And I've always said this from the beginning. The problem with Hamdijos is the leaseholders. Right, it's the leasehold. It's the attitude of the leaseholder.
But it sounds like many of them don't really participate at all. And it sounds like an awful lot of people are just they read the emails, maybe sort of watch the podcast, but they don't actually engage with the conversations that are going on. Is that true?
Yeah, because they feel that like I explained to you earlier, that there's certain people who don't want to take sides, like they don't want to make enemies with certain people. But for me, I think that if you can't do the job, you need to go. And if the person who can't do the job, like Mamas and Brett and all the others, don't have the self-awareness and the honesty to say, I don't know how to do this job, so I shouldn't be a director. And then the others need to take the higher ground and say you can't do the job, but they won't, because
I think they don't do it because they're not, on some level, they're not really interested in finding out exactly what's going on. Would you say?
partly, yeah, a lot of them sit quietly, pay their service charge, and they don't care what's going on in the building. I think that shows that these kind of people should not be allowed to own properties. I should not definitely not be allowed to be landlords, because if you don't take an interest in how your property is being managed, you're putting your tenant's life at risk.
That's true. Yes.
And eventually, we will have some kind of a disaster in this building, and your tenants could possibly die. And I think it just shows like the lack of education, the total lack of intelligence as well of the people. And they don't like to be told, but their behavior contradicts what they believe about themselves, really. It's like, Brett hates me because I exposed him as a liar and a fantasist, because he had always dreamed he was some kind of fabulous director. But he was the most incompetent, useless person I'd ever met. And he never should have been a director at all. And in fact, his attitude and people like Mamas, James, and the others in the building who are only interested in self-promotion, they're actually denying other people who could do the job, the position, because of that attitude.
So do you think there are other leaseholders who would like the position?
I even think Mr. Sim could have been a director.
Yes, his email sounds very
all the years that Brett was
email.
Yeah,
yes.
all the years that Brett was a director and couldn't do the job, Mr. Sim could have done the job. I know somebody who is a managing agent, and he says, I manage one of the blocks where the pensioner is 98 years old, and he's a director. Because he's old, they ignored him for all these years. And that's the attitude of somebody like Kaleem. But he thinks because he's young, he's got more intelligence, so he should be the one who's director. They're younger, they're more aggressive, they're pushy, but they don't have the intelligence to back it up. They're just loud and pushy and nasty in general. So Mr. Sims, all these years, I think he could have been a director. Had Brett been magnanimous enough to not do the job, but he was so obsessed with himself. And I just, for me, that kind of behavior is absolutely revolting. And I find him one of the most unpleasant people I've ever met. And I feel the same with the others, because they are just dishonest. Mamas is a very dishonest person. And I don't want somebody like that to be managing my property. So their emails attacking me for not paying the service charge, it means nothing to me, really.
You wanted them to respond to you, and they didn't really take on board any of your worries.
Yeah, they don't have the maturity. Not only do they lack the intelligence, they lack the maturity, and also the integrity and decency that you want from the. And that's not just Mamas; that's the others as well. Like there was Jackie. She was supporting me a while ago, and I said to her, well, why don't you speak out again about Brett and tell him to go as a director? And she refused. She says, I don't want to, because when something needs to be done in my flat, they would refuse to do it.
It sounds as though they're people being ruled by fear rather than
she's only she was also about self-preservation as well. She wasn't interested in doing anything in case it might harm her. But the thing is that by doing nothing, she harmed herself even more.
Yes.
And then I told her off about that. She decided she didn't want to be friends with me anymore, and now she's supporting Mamas. And then it's kind of a bit of like, now because she's licking Mamas' ass, Mamas is good. They voted her in to be a director of the freehold, but she can't she can't do the job as a director of the freehold, really, because she doesn't know what she's doing. So she's sitting there doing nothing. And that's what and it comes like that. Like, you support me, I support you. We're all buddies. And that's how this building works. It has nothing to do with talent or integrity or decency.
So you feel they haven't got enough experience to do the job?
They don't have experience. They don't have the intelligence. They don't have the manners, good manners. They don't have, most importantly, the honesty to be doing the job. How they behave is to make threats against people. So every time I speak out against them, they make threats against me. That's a typical. So I've had more threats against me than I've had hot dinners from these people.
But you're not frightened of their threats, are you?
No. They don't even understand that if they go to court, it's more likely it's going to cost them more money. This is why that it's so stupid, because they're telling people who don't have money, let's spend our money going to court.